Good morning, everybody. How are you on this rainy morning? You going to bring some good energy this morning? Okay, I was up late, so I need a lot of good energy. I was up at Earth, Wind, and Fire and Lionel Richie. People, it was fun, so we're going to party. Oh, sorry. Okay. So our theme this month is the universe always has a plan. But I think we've all had times in our life when we did not believe that that was true. And 2007 was one of those years for me. My mother was 84 years old, and she was really declining cognitively, and we were struggling to get someone to come care for her at home, and at that time it was much more difficult to find people than it is now. And it turned out she had this neurological thing. And I had 5 siblings at the time, but for some reason, I was in a new job, but for some reason, I was the one who had to do every doctor's appointment. And, it was just a really hard period. And then I had been dating someone. We go on this great vacation. He flakes out on me when we get back. While I was gone, my dog got a hot spot on her tail. My nephew decided to shave it, and she bit the end of her tail off, so the dog had to have the tail amputated. And my blood pressure was through the roof. Through the roof. And in the middle of that, I was just kind of like, what the F? Right? Like, what the F is going on here? It's like, could anything else possibly go wrong right now? But, the universe does always have a plan. Because if you fast forward 3 months, my mom had gotten an operation. She was better. The dog settled into her new life with a shorter tail. The flaky boyfriend was still around, but in the midst of that, I was offered the job I always wanted, and it wasn't here in Chicago. And I remember going through the process, because in my mind, my relationship was over, so I was like, well, is it a problem if I move, if my relationship's always over? And I remember my oldest brother said to me, Aim, you have to do this. It would be such a mistake for you not to do this. And in that moment, I said, you know what? The universe did have a plan. And I look back on it now and I think, that time in DC, even though I chose to come back, I learned so much about the world. I had people that I worked with who were from all over the world. Our clients were from all over the world. I began to understand some different religions because we had a lot of people who were from different parts of the world. They were Buddhist, they were Muslim, they were other things. And I began to have an appreciation of different paths. And I also began to understand how other countries saw America because the bank I worked for was an international bank. And so I think the universe did have a plan. And then while I was there, it was weird to move away from all my people, right? It was really weird. And it took, I would say my last year, I finally had real friends. But I so deeply missed being here. And I realized during that time I started ministerial school, I realized I wasn't in alignment with the energy I was working in. I was wired differently. I was trying to be someone that I really wasn't. And so, the universe had a plan there, but I didn't know what it was ahead of time. I didn't know that all those things were going to happen, that I was going to have these experiences that would cause me to grow and to wake up, which is what we do when we're conscious. We grow and we wake up. So that's what it means for the universe to have a plan. But as Matt Kahn in our book of the month talks about, we have to let go to let that happen. We have to let go. And I loved the song, Let Go and Let God Have Its Way. And even if your word's not God, let source, let spirit, let the universe, use your own word. It's a beautiful song because it's about just let me see what is going to happen. Let's see what wants to happen. And what happens when we let go? We get emotionally free. Right? We free ourselves emotionally. It's easier to adapt and thrive and change. We become more patient and compassionate with ourselves and others. And put spiritually, we're in this flow of this current of unconditional love. We're really surrendering to that and letting that nourish us. And what happens when we go with the flow? We're just letting reality happen instead of trying to control it. But what do most of us do? Right? We assume the universe doesn't have a plan because we have our own personal plan, and we like vice grip it, like it needs to look like this. And when it doesn't look like that, we think that there's no plan, but maybe there's a better plan than our plan, right? We have to let go of our need to control, though, so that we can see the plan that's emerging, like what doors are opening for us, what doors are closing for us, instead of making ourselves wrong, like, why didn't that door open for me? Am I not good enough? We can say, oh, that door was not supposed to open. That's interesting. Maybe a different door is supposed to open. And I think, too, like one of the things I've learned is if things flow easily, it's for me, and if I have to push it, it's not for me, right? And so just noticing, where am I pushing? You know, where am I trying to make something happen? So our encouragement this month is each Sunday you're going to learn a few, he calls them golden rules of letting go. And you have a handout because I really love for people to go at home and do some more with this. So I'm going to talk about what they are. And if you want a pen, Linda's got pens, wave, she'll give you a pen. And Matt Kahn is kind of a radical. He's, we were joking around at being weird spiritual people. And he says he calls himself weird, like his whole life. His family thought he was weird. They just didn't understand him. He was just wired differently. And he says he's a spiritual myth buster. So I'm going to talk to you about a few of the spiritual myths he wants us to bust. So our first 3 golden rules. Number 1, you've done nothing wrong. Number 2, anyone who blames you isn't happy. And number 3, hardships can be fast-tracked through thankfulness. So let's look at each of these. So golden rule number 1, you've done nothing wrong. You know, who grew up and you believed that you were doing stuff wrong all the time because of the reactions of the people around you, right? You still do. Some things are hard to let go of, but like he thought, what Matt Kahn says about himself, which I relate to, is that he decided what was right and wrong based on how people reacted to him. And so that created in him that, I have to please other people. I have to anticipate what other people want. Who relates to that? I do, right? And it can really still hold us hostage as adults, even though we know better, right? So that's what we're going to break down here. And, when I first read it, you've done nothing wrong. I'm like, well, I'm quite certain I've done some things wrong in my life. But that's not what he's talking about. He's looking at it spiritually, okay? And, we're looking at it from a higher level. So, of course, we've all done things in our life that, could have been better. And I always say, if you knew better, you would have done better. But he gives an example of his mom and how he learned that the reactions of others don't indicate how aligned or misaligned he is with his spirit. And so his mom would have these eruptions of like anger. She wasn't patient, she was stressed, she was upset with everybody, she was blaming everybody in her life. And what he realized as he became more empathetic toward her was that she was really unappreciated. She was overgiving, and she was, she felt frustrated, she felt disempowered, she felt a lot of things that we can all feel sometimes, right? But she took it out on him, so he would walk on eggshells. And, we're particularly susceptible to this when we're little because we haven't learned anything different yet, right? And so if you still carry a little of it, you probably picked it up when you were little, like you were picking up the energy of the people around you, right? And so just notice it. But if we think of life as a spiritual journey that is here for the purpose of us becoming more conscious, becoming more aware, then we can see with our spiritual eyes. So like the reactions of someone else, it's not really about us. It's like what Don Miguel Ruiz, tongue-tied, Ruiz says in the Four Agreements, don't take it personally. People's reactions are not about you. And, you know, if we look at it from a spiritual level, like our ego might not like when things go a certain way, but our spirit is excited for us to have a growth opportunity. Funny little sense of humor that spirit has there. But what does our ego do? Our ego sees judgment, self-criticism, right? Where we might criticize ourselves. We might keep score of what's wrong with us or other people, by the way, right? That's what we do. But if your life is designed by your spirit, and then just recognizing there's a higher plan that's happening. Like, who am I meant to be evolving to, right? Like, what's the higher plan here, whatever our experience is? And I want to talk for a second about when we do something we regret. Who has things from their past that still come up in their consciousness and you're like, God, it was 40 years ago and I still regret that. Sad to say. But, you know, when we regret something, we need to have self-compassion, right? We need to give ourselves compassion. If you had known better, you would have done better. And in that moment that it comes up, and this is true for any kind of stress in our life, I'm just going to have you do this right now. Think about something you regret, okay, or something that causes you stress, okay? And I just want you to close your eyes for a second. And I want you to just, first of all, like lift your shoulders up to your ears and then just relax them down. And then let's take a couple deep breaths together, just breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out. And just ask yourself quietly, am I safe right now? Am I okay? You know, what does your spirit have to say about whatever this is? Just allow the energy to just dissolve. And whenever you're ready, just open your eyes. So we can all do that during the week when we get triggered. You know, if something triggers us, or if we're having a moment where, you know, does this happen? It's the middle of the night when I get the regret flashbacks when I can't sleep. It's like, why am I thinking about this right now? It's just ridiculous, right? But to breathe through it and just to say, you know what, I'm okay, my spirit's okay, I'm safe, right? Everything's good. And if you feel like you need to call in some forgiveness for yourself or for somebody else, you know, we could all say that we've been betrayed, neglected, abused, you know, make your list, not appreciated. And so it's okay to feel those feelings, but like just be easy with yourself. You know, Matt Kahn talks a lot about self-compassion. And so, you know, when there is something we need to forgive in ourselves and others, sometimes we're not quite ready to do it. And that's the truth of our human experience, right? We're not ready. There's something in us that isn't ready to let it go. And so just be compassionate with yourself until you are ready. But really what we want to do is we want to really be focused on what is the spiritual contribution of the situation to my life, right? Like if we were betrayed, you know, what came from that for us, right? Did we learn more self-love from that? Did we make a different choice? You know, what did we learn from whatever happened? And Matt Kahn says, forgiveness isn't a matter of saying any betrayal, neglect, or abuse was deserving. It's a matter of acknowledging that those who have made an indelible impression upon your history have only set you in a direction toward the arrival of your highest destiny. Can anyone see that as a thread in your life? Like the worst thing that you think happened to you ever, that now you can see, oh, okay, there was a gift there. And that's really the invitation. We need to be willing to do it. And he doesn't say this in his book, but if you're in your mind, if there's someone you need to forgive, but like maybe you don't even really want to talk to the person, right? Like maybe they're not a safe person to have a conversation with for you, or you just don't want to invite the energy into your life. The whole Ho'oponopono, which we talk a lot about here, is really a good forgiveness prayer for that. And the words of that are, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. And I didn't put this in the handout, but you can Google it. And it's really beautiful because if you bring the person in mind, or maybe the person is yourself, but if you bring the person in mind, you're clearing the energy. Because what I don't want for any of us is to be camped in a land where we're holding unforgiveness. We don't want to camp there. It's not, resentment, all of that. It's not physically good for us actually, but it's really putting us in a space that's not supportive of where we want to go in our lives. So I'm going to skip his spiritual myth busting because I want to be aware of time. So number 2, anyone who blames you isn't happy. That's golden rule number 2. So those who blame you aren't happy, and when we blame, we're not happy. So anyone who blames us isn't happy. So can you open your spiritual heart, to the person? Just be aware. It's an awareness. It's not a judgment of the person, right? Like, oh, I'm noticing so-and-so is blaming. Oh, you're holding up the time. Thank you. Thank you. I have it up here too, and on my hand. What? Oh, okay. People who are happy because they're blaming people all the time. Well, they're actually not happy. I don't think they're actually happy. And if you have someone in your life who's blaming you all the time, maybe you just want to change your relationship with them. Matt Kahn has a great story about this. His uncle, I'll jump ahead to this, his uncle, as I said, everyone in his family thought he was weird. And so when he would go home, he had moved away from where they all lived. He would go to, I think he moved to Oregon. So when he went home for the holiday, he took a lot of snipes from people because they thought he was weird. He was a healer, whatever. So one of his uncles comes up to him at a party and he goes, you're weird. I mean, who makes a living as a healer, right? And instead of reacting, he just said to him, maybe you're not someone who needs to be healed, but there are other people who do. So thank you. He just said thank you to him. And that's what we can do, right? We can be grateful. So I'm hopping ahead in my talk, so I'm going to come back to that. Can I put a pin in it? If someone says that you're a reason for their unhappiness, that's a projection of blame, right? And haven't we all done that? Like, I'm unhappy because so-and-so did such and such to me. But what's happening when we're blaming someone is we're attaching to an outcome, right? We're attaching to an outcome. Someone didn't do what we thought they should have done, right? So we're blaming them because we're unhappy, because we wanted it to go a different way. But when we let go and let our soul be the guide, we can make a conscious choice to not be in a relationship where there's a lot of blaming happening, right? That's how we can, show more self-acceptance for ourselves. But the other thing is, when you are more emotionally free, where other people are doesn't impact you as much, right? You can just notice oh, okay, they're blaming me right now. Thank you for the feedback. There's nothing wrong with getting feedback. And those of us who are pleasers, how many of us do we have in the room? Yeah, if you're a pleaser, that's really hard for you, right? It's hard to not feel responsible for someone's reaction, but the truth is, you're not. That's their reaction. Doesn't mean you shouldn't try to be in a conversation and relationship and get curious about it, but you're not responsible for their relationship, their reaction. So here's what I want you to notice this week. I want you to notice who you blame this week. I want you to really notice, what are you doing that is causing you to blame others? Or where do you notice you're getting blamed? Right? And I'm going to go through your homework at the end. So I'm going to come back to that then. Okay, so the next one, which we sort of got into ahead of time, is hardship can be fast-tracked through thankfulness. So, I talked about Matt Kahn, has this thing with his uncle, and he just learned at some point, his spirit said to him, what if you just said thank you anytime someone insulted you, judged you, or spoke harshly to you? What if you just said thank you? What if you just said, thank you for your feedback. I'm interested in what you have to say. It doesn't mean you need to take it. I think with feedback, you can always go home and think about it. I remember when I was in my 20s, if I got criticized at work, I would take it so personally. And I would go home and beat the crap out of myself. Be like, I'm not perfect. And Rich is probably watching going, you're still that way. Yes, it's possible that resembles me. But but we have a choice in our consciousness, right? We have a choice in our consciousness what we do. Just say thank you. Whether it's a compliment or whether it's a criticism, just, well, thank you for telling me. I appreciate knowing, right? I appreciate knowing. And maybe you learn something from what they say to you about how you're impacting them, or maybe it is about them and you have to discern that. But, just to be open, not to let it slime you. Remember Ghostbusters, they got slimed. You don't want to get slimed by what people say to you. That just came up. I don't know where that came from. So the vibration of gratitude, that's where we want to live. We want to be in relationship of gratitude. And when I sit with Matt Kahn's material, it really reminds me to simply be the observer in my life. Am I the observer? That's an Eastern thought, right? That's a big thing in Buddhism and other paths. What is the universe trying to do with my life? What is trying to happen, right? Just to be curious about it. And also the observer of where others are in their lives and their interactions to me. It doesn't mean you excuse bad behavior or don't speak up for yourself, but just noticing, where am I in my interaction with this person? But most importantly, observe your own consciousness. If we're observing unfairness, it might, or anything else, any unwanted situation, right? It's really calling up a different quality in our consciousness. We would say it's a spiritual quality, right? If I'm feeling unappreciated, maybe when I'm calling in is appreciation, right? We could say that about everything has its opposite, right? So when you're experiencing something unwanted, what you're wanting to call in through your spiritual work is its opposite. And that's, that can really be the gift, especially if we're out of whack. When you're out of whack in your life and you're just kind of like, oh, where am I going? I don't know what's happening right now. Sometimes actually the things that happen are a gift because you'll be like, well, that's it. I want freedom. I don't feel free. I'm not expressing enough creativity in my life. I don't feel free to do that. Oh, that's what I want. Right? It's like whatever the unwanted thing is points to the wanted. So we teach the kingdoms of consciousness here, and this is, before I give you your homework, this is where I want to end. And, there's 4 kingdoms of consciousness. The first one is the victim, right? I'm the victim. Things are happening to me. The second one is by me, so I'm the manifester. Things are happening by me. I'm doing it. The next one is through me, so I'm the channel through which spirit is flowing. And the last one is being consciousness, so as me. Things are happening as me. And, you might live in different kingdoms in different parts of your life. You might find that like your money kingdom, you're in victim or by me, and in your creativity or self-expression, you're in through me or as me. But just be aware of where you are, right? Just think about, where am I right now? And is there any place that I want to shift, right? Like, that's the invitation. Where would I like to be having a shift? Because it's really about cultivating a greater sense of inner happiness, right? How do you create more inner happiness? That's by being connected to your spirit. Like, all these things are just tools, right, to help you point in the direction of what's your spirit wanting. So I just really invite you to think about, who do you want to be? So the universe always has a plan. So if you're online, this is in the Sunday program, and it's also, I think Patrick was going to drop it in the chat, but Matt Kahn gives us some work to do at home. So I want to share this work for you to do at home. So the first thing is golden rule number 1, you've done nothing wrong. And I'm going to make you speak the affirmations and mantras out loud, just a warning. Okay, so the first affirmation is, in order to be who I was born to become, life couldn't have happened any other way. Okay, so you're going to say it along with me out loud, big Sunday voices. In order to be who I was born to become, life couldn't have happened any other way. I love that. And so your homework is to think about what you did wrong, things you did wrong, and what do you hold against yourself. And you're going to try to unravel the case against yourself. So to spend some time contemplating, how was what you did wrong actually right for you with where your life turned out? Like, how did it help you turn a corner or whatever? And journal on that at home. So that's the first one, okay? Golden rule number 2, anyone who blames you isn't happy. I especially love that one. That's my favorite. Okay, so the mantra is, I allow those who blame and have wronged me to be forgiven. In forgiving others, I am set free. So, okay, come on, big voices, read along. I allow those who blame and have wronged me to be forgiven. In forgiving others, I am set free. Okay, and then your homework on this one is to make a list of who's blamed you or people in the world suffering more than you are, and then send them blessings of forgiveness. I like that. That's a good one. Okay, so number 3, hardships can be fast-tracked through thankfulness. So this one's easy. This is easy to remember. You don't need a cheat sheet on this one. Thank you for this gift. Okay, let's say it out loud. Thank you for this gift. Okay, and your homework is, and this reminds me of Byron Katie, you're going to cultivate the opposite. Okay, so you're going to ask yourself a few questions. How do I feel as a result of the hurt? What's the opposite adjective? So we call that the spiritual quality. And by the way, if you want to call something in, please get prayer at the back of the room at the end. And then thank you for helping me cultivate this quality of my soul's potential. That's the process. So as we move toward going into prayer, I just want you to think for a second about one thing you're going to focus on this week. And I want you to share it with your neighbor. This is a quick share. It's like a 1-minute share. Share it with your neighbor. One thing you're going to focus on. I want to say I'm going to give a shout out to Jason, because last week in the Prac Sunday, we did something similar, and he walked up to me this morning. He goes, how'd you do on that this week? I'm like, thank you for asking me. That was awesome. He's holding me accountable. Okay, so 1 minute, share with your neighbor. What are you going to do this week? What inspired you in your talk that you're going to focus on this week? And I forgot to say, if you're online, type it in the chat. Okay, about 30 more seconds. And you can go have coffee in the hallway and let them, that's funny. You can have coffee in the hallway and talk about it later. Okay, let's come back together. And I had a funny chat that John just called me, brought up to show me from Rich saying, you resemble that remark. So thanks, honey. Okay, so let's take this into prayer. Let's give us a little underscore to start. Let go and let God have its way.
Soon as I stop worrying,
Let's turn within. Just close your eyes and connect with your spirit. And just know that this presence and power of love is surrounding and supporting you. That always and everywhere you are one with this divine current of spirit. That you are never separate from it. That this loving energy is the truth of your being. And that there is always a plan that is happening in, as, and through your life. And you are absolutely on point and on purpose. So I just know and declare for each one of us that we are open to receive Spirit's calling for us. I just know and declare that we are led to our greater yet to be. And I just know for each of us that we are letting go. We are allowing ourselves to be free in spirit, to be happy, to allow love to express in, as, and through us. I say yes to this. I just know this prayer is fulfilled. I'm so grateful for it. And with so much gratitude, I simply say, and so it is. Amen.